Theirs is a story of the rise of the Knights Templar and their fall on this fateful day, a journey through history, power, and betrayal. In the early years of the 12th century, the Knights Templar were established for a very humble purpose. Their initial job was to protect the pilgrims on their journey to Jerusalem, a hazardous undertaking through enemy lands. The Knights were the heroes of their day, offering protection to those people who wanted to act out their faith by making a pilgrimage. The reputation of the Templars grew over time. They were no longer just protectors, they were fast becoming a symbol of Christian military might during the Crusades. Their ranks grew, as did their influence. Templars created an extremely complex network throughout Europe, in which they opened commanderies or estates that served them as bases. But it was not only their martial prowess, but also indeed their financial acumen. They designed an ingenious system of banking whereby the wealth of the pilgrims was invested back at home, and from this money funds were drawn in the Holy Land. Apart from fulfilling the void for the pilgrims, this development hugely increased the coffers of the Templars. The wealth was not only in gold and silver, they owned vast tracts of land, vineyards, farms, and even whole towns. They would become landlords, manufacturers, and bankers, the masters of an economic empire without parallel for a religious order. Their power grew to its height in the last decades of the 13th century. By that point in time, the Templars were no mere religious order. They were a powerhouse, a state within a state. The ear of kings and popes sought their advice on war, finance, and diplomacy. Their rapid rise to influence and wealth, on the other hand, did not come without danger. From these monstrous fortunes and influence followed the Great Shadow. It caught the eye of those who looked at the Templars as protectors not of the faith, but of their power. King Philip IV of France was very much in debt to the Templars and saw a golden opportunity to recover money from them. Thus began the dark path in the history of the Knights Templar, a French monarchy with King Philip on the throne, drowning in debt, much of it to the Templars. The Knights had turned from a military force into an economic power, their treasuries filled by donations from thankful pilgrims and spoils taken in the Crusades. And this, of course, was a large part of what King Philip saw. Not only were the Templars his creditors, but they also posed a threat to the authority he wished to impose. In order to defeat this terrifying order, he needed an argument that would convince the public and the consent of the Church. Both he found in heresy and blasphemy. The Knights were accused of denying Christ, worshipping idols, engaging in ungodly rituals. With such charges, he could horrify any pious medieval population, full of shock and fear. With these charges, King Philip established the support of Pope Clement V. At this juncture, the Pope, under the King's pressure, released a papal bull ordering the arrest and trial of the Templars. And so, on a fateful Friday, the 13th of October in 1307, the French monarchy executed a mass arrest of the Templar Knights. This was no ordinary arrest. It was a well-planned operation, executed simultaneously throughout France. The Templars could not resist. They had neither their own defense plans, nor time to escape. The detained knights were sent to prisons, brutally questioned, and forced to confess to all sorts of crimes. One of them was Jacques de Molay, the final Grand Master of the Knights Templar. His arrest marked the total collapse of this order, which had been so strong yet now was supplicating. It was the beginning of the end for the Templars. This was the day of reckoning that sent shockwaves through the halls of power, forever linking the date to ill fortune and the fall of the once mighty Knights Templar. Among those arrested was Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar. An individual of enormous importance, the tale of de Molay is as intriguing as it is tragic. The last of their line, he was to shoulder a burden that would consume him in the end, the Grand Master of the Knights Templar. Ripped from the Templar stronghold and cast into a dark, frigid dungeon, de Molay remained imprisoned for years on end. His captors had the motive to eventually justify their own doings by harshly subjecting him to unspeakable torture. What they aimed at was making him confess to heresy, blasphemy, and other monstrous accusations, one after another, all carefully invented in order to blacken the name of the Templars and legitimize their collapse. But Jacques de Molay had been more than a Grand Master. He was a man of unshakable faith and remarkable bravery. Before the pain, the fear, and the uncertainty, he did not relent. He held on to the innocence of the Templars until the last moment. In 1314, after years of enduring such torment, the end finally came. De Molay was led to the stake in the heart of Paris, the city that once adored the Templars, but now was a stage for their final act. As the flames first kissed his feet, it is told that de Molay raised his voice one last time, not in pain or in fear, but in defiance. He cursed King Philip and Pope Clement, that the same fate would befall them within the year. His words, it would seem, proved more prophetic than was ever suspected. Within a year, both King Philip and Pope Clement died under circumstances as mysterious as those which surrounded the end of the Templars. And in the death rattle of Jacques de Molay would lie the death knell for the Templar, leaving a legacy that was shrouded in mystery. His story, like that of the Templars themselves, speaks volumes about the power of belief, the willpower of the human spirit, and the eternal attraction that mysteries of the past have for us. The mass arrest of the Templars on Friday the 13th literally put this date down in history under an unlucky card. This event, which took place on an October day in 1307, is often designated as the birth of the bad luck that today surrounds Friday the 13th. Whether superstitious or not, one cannot argue with the fact that this historical event left a mark in the development of our ideas and views. The world, for the Knights Templar, came tumbling down on that fateful day, because what was being done was that King Philip IV of France, with the support of Pope Clement V, had orchestrated a mass arrest of the Templar Knights on accusations of heresy and blasphemy. They were not simply political maneuvers. This was a planned action to seize the enormous wealth the Templars had accrued. The Knights Templars, erstwhile guards of the pilgrimage to the Holy Land, succumbed to torture and confessed under duress. Many went to their end at the gallows, or like Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, at the stake. The death of de Molay is particularly haunting. Legend has it that he cursed both King Philip and Pope Clement from the flames, foretelling their deaths within a year, an eerie prophecy which did indeed come to pass. In the centuries since, the fall of the Templars on Friday the 13th has become an extraordinary blend of history and myth, again, told and retold, with all the additions adding another layer to the legend. The story itself has already inscribed our cultural script to justify how such historical events may turn out to be cultural markers. The legacy of that Friday the 13th is one of intrigue and downfall, of power and greed. It's a story continued to be captured, blending the historical tragedy of the Templar Knights with the lore of bad luck that Friday the 13th carries today. Weave history, religion, and myth into the tale of the Knights Templar and Friday the 13th. The story of this powerful medieval Christian military order, their shocking downfall, and the enduring superstition surrounding their fateful day of arrest, is a compelling narrative that has captured the intrigue of generations. The story of the Templars was absorbed into the cultural fabric and evolved into a touchstone itself, reflecting the multifaceted interplay between historical events and myths they inspired. The influence that they had was not only placed in the past, but continued to pulsate within the cultural consciousness, and went some way to explaining why Friday the 13th is thought to be a day of great misfortune. The interesting blend of historical fact, legend, and superstition that has formed about the Templar's story is a potent reminder of how great events may shape a culture's narrative and belief system. Their dramatic fall from grace and the mysterious circumstances surrounding their downfall continue to ignite the imagination, forever linking the Knights Templar with the lore of bad luck that Friday the 13th carries to this day. Thank you for spending time with us on Spookscope today. Feel free to share your thoughts and theories in the comments section, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends and family. Until next time, my dear spooker, stay curious